We do have some breaking news that just came into our newsroom that we have to bring to you. It's official there, British rock star Ozzy Osbourne has died at the age of 76.
The Black Sabbath lead singer Ozzy Osbourne has died at the age of 76.
We do have breaking news from the world of entertainment. We have received word that music legend Ozzy Osbourne has died.
They said Ozzy Osbourne died peacefully. But if I told you that wasn't true, but what if the Prince of Darkness had planned for his own death, together with the woman he loved most? And just days before his passing, why did his daughter erupt in anger, denying every rumor about a so-called suicide pact? And Sharon Osbourne, the wife who stood by him through madness and fame, remained silent for days afterward. A letter, a promise, and a decision that could change everything. What Sharon finally revealed after the funeral made the world question everything we thought we knew. Did Ozzy Osbourne really die naturally? Or was his end carefully planned all along? Before the chaos, before the headlines and madness, there was just a boy from Birmingham, a factory town shrouded in smoke and steel. John Michael Ozzy Osbourne was born into a working-class world where the only escape from the noise of machines was the sound of music. From the start, Ozzy wasn't meant for the ordinary. His voice carried something raw and unsettling, a scream from the industrial heart of England. In 1968, fate intervened. Alongside Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward, Ozzy helped create Black Sabbath, a band that would forever change music. Their sound was dark, heavy, and unapologetically menacing, a reflection of the times they lived in. The debut album Black Sabbath in 1970 and its follow-up Paranoid sent shockwaves through the world. For the first time, rock music had crossed into something primal, something called heavy metal. Songs like Iron Man and War Pigs weren't just hits. They were hymns of rebellion for a disillusioned generation. Fame hit fast, but so did excess. Ozzy became a living embodiment of chaos, unpredictable, magnetic, and dangerous. Drugs, alcohol, and notoriety followed him everywhere. By 1979, he was out of his own band, spiraling into darkness, written off as another fallen rock star. This was not the end. In the ashes of his downfall, a young woman named Sharon Osbourne saw something the world no longer did: potential. She became his manager, his anchor, and eventually his wife. Together, they rebuilt his empire brick by brick. And from that alliance, born in ruin, emerged a new Ozzy, louder, wilder, unstoppable. The Prince of Darkness had risen again, but the higher he climbed, the darker his destiny would become. By the early 1980s, remarked the peak of his career when Ozzy Osbourne was no longer just the voice of Black Sabbath. He was a phenomenon. His solo career exploded with Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman, albums that redefined the sound of heavy metal and cemented his legend. Crazy Train became an anthem of rebellion, blasting through arenas filled with thousands who worshiped the man they called the Prince of Darkness. But behind the roar of guitars and flashing lights, a quieter chaos was building. The fame that had saved him was now feeding the very demons that once destroyed him. Ozzy's performances grew more unhinged, his behavior more unpredictable. On stage, he was untouchable, but off stage, he was drifting deeper into the haze of addiction. Every triumph carried a shadow, and Sharon, the woman who had resurrected his career, was the only one holding the empire together. The world saw the legend, but she saw the man unraveling. Each tour meant another scandal, another close call, another night that could have ended in tragedy. Ozzy's infamy reached its peak when he bit the head off a bat on stage, an act that shocked the world and sealed his image forever. The media called him a monster. Fans called him immortal. But Sharon knew he was neither. He was human, fragile, and burning out. As the 1980s thundered on, the Osbournes became royalty in the kingdom of rock. Money, fame, power, they had it all. Yet within that glittering fortress, the foundation had already begun to crack. The addiction, the exhaustion, the blurred lines between love and control, all of it was tightening around them like a noose. No one could see it yet, but the kingdom Sharon built was about to turn against its king. And the first fracture, when it came, would not come from the stage or the crowd. It would come from within their own home. And finally, the first real crack came in 1989. That night has since become a legend and a haunting one. Under the influence of so many substances that he later claimed to have no memory of it, Ozzy tried to strangle Sharon in their home. It was not a dramatic rock star moment. It was something far worse. A wife gasping for air, a husband too lost to recognize her face. When the police arrived, Ozzy was arrested and charged with attempted murder. The world didn't see this side of the Prince of Darkness. Fans only saw the chaotic charm, the stumbling human, the man who made darkness look fun. But Sharon knew the truth. That night, she could have ended it all. His freedom, his career, his myth. Yet she didn't. She made a choice that would define the next 3 decades. She bailed him out and sent him to rehab. That decision saved Ozzy's life, but it also bound them together in a way neither of them could ever fully escape. Sharon was no longer just a wife or a manager. She became the guardian of a broken man who could not survive without her. Their marriage turned into a fortress built on dependency and damage. Each relapse, each outburst, each heartbreak pulled them deeper into a loop of destruction disguised as devotion. As the years passed, Ozzy's public image began to shift. He was still the Prince of Darkness, but his rebellion had become a routine. The outrageous stories, snorting ants, biting doves turned from horror into humor. The world started laughing with him, not at him. Then came the Osbournes in 2002, the reality show that turned their private dysfunction into global entertainment. Millions watched the once terrifying rock god shuffle around his mansion, muttering, forgetting, and falling. What had once been his chaos became content. The same madness that had nearly destroyed his marriage now made him more famous than ever. But behind the laughter, Sharon was still cleaning up the blood. Every season of the show was another layer of the mask. The loving, clumsy dad who said funny things. But the truth was that Ozzy was fading, physically and mentally. And then in 2003, fate came to collect. A brutal ATV accident shattered his body and nearly took his life. The injuries were catastrophic. Broken bones, internal bleeding, and a coma that lasted more than a week. When he finally woke, something in him had changed. He was alive, but weaker, slower. The man who had once howled through stadiums now struggled to move without pain. That same year, he was secretly diagnosed with a rare genetic form of Parkinson's. He kept it hidden for 17 years. To the public, Ozzy was still the immortal wild man of rock, but privately he was beginning a long, silent war against his own body. Sharon once again became both nurse and protector, managing not only his career, but his every breath. Yet even as his body betrayed him, Ozzy refused to stop performing. He returned to the stage again and again, his body strapped together by steel rods and medication. Fans saw resilience, but those closest to him saw something else. A man terrified of fading away, clinging to the only thing that still gave his life meaning. By the 2010s, the cracks were too deep to hide. Public appearances grew rarer. His speech slowed, his movements trembled. And then came the whispers about assisted death, about a pact between him and Sharon to end their lives together rather than waste away. The rumors sounded impossible, but so did everything else about Ozzy's life. For a man who had built a kingdom from pain, death wasn't the enemy. It was the final encore, the last curtain call he wanted to control. Sharon, ever the strategist, understood this better than anyone. But when love and mercy become indistinguishable, the line between devotion and destruction blurs. So when Ozzy's body finally began to fail and the world started asking questions, the Osbournes once again closed ranks. Sharon said little. Kelly lashed out. Jack kept quiet. And through it all, Ozzy, the man who had screamed through decades of chaos, sat in silence. The fall of the Prince of Darkness wasn't a sudden crash. It was a slow, haunting descent. A man who once ruled with fire, now fading under the weight of time, pain, and secrets. And as his story neared its end, one question began to echo louder than any guitar riff he ever played. Did Ozzy Osbourne lose control of his fate, or did he decide to end it on his own terms? When the news of Ozzy Osbourne's death broke, the world mourned not only the loss of a musician, but the fall of a cultural monument. Tributes flooded in from fans, artists, and world leaders alike. Yet beneath the waves of grief, a question lingered. What really happened in those final days? Sharon Osbourne finally spoke, her voice measured, fragile, yet unflinching. She did not confess to any act, but she did something more profound. She acknowledged a philosophy. "We both believed in the right to die with dignity," she said softly. Ozzy had suffered more than most people could ever imagine. He deserved peace. Her words were neither an admission nor a denial, but they carried the unmistakable weight of truth. She was not defending herself. She was defending the man she had loved, protected, and endured for nearly 5 decades. The ambiguity of her statement became its own kind of confession. In California, where Ozzy passed, assisted death is legal but bound by rigid rules. In the United Kingdom, it remains a crime. Between these two worlds, one permissive, one punitive, the Osbournes had built their life, and perhaps their final act took place somewhere in between. It was not a scandal. It was a reckoning. For Sharon, the silence that followed was not guilt, but exhaustion. Decades of holding together a storm had left her without strength to fight another. For fans, her words were both comforting and haunting. Comforting because it meant Ozzy may have found peace on his own terms. Haunting because it suggested that peace might have come by human hands. But in the end, what mattered most was not how Ozzy died, but how he lived. From the smoke-choked factories of Birmingham to the glittering stages of Los Angeles, he embodied everything raw, flawed, and fearless about rock and roll. He invented a language of rebellion, then outlived every rule it broke. His music spoke to the misfits, the broken, and the lost, those who saw beauty in darkness because they had lived there too. Ozzy's final performance, just weeks before his death, showed it all. Sitting on a throne, frail but unyielding, his voice trembled as he sang, "I'm not going away." At that moment, it was no longer just a song. It was a prophecy. Even now, his legend refuses to fade. In the echo of his growl, in the silence after the applause, there is still defiance. The eternal whisper of a man who turned pain into power and chaos into art. Ozzy Osbourne's story ends not in tragedy, but in transformation. His death, whether peaceful or planned, remains shrouded in mystery, yet it feels fitting for a man who lived between myth and madness. He taught the world that darkness could be beautiful, that brokenness could roar louder than perfection, and that love, even the most chaotic kind, could survive everything. Sharon's last words about him lingered in the air. "He was my greatest chaos and my greatest calm." Perhaps that is the truest epitaph the Prince of Darkness could ever have. In the end, Ozzy did not fade quietly into history. He became part of it, a voice that still howls in every riff, every rebellion, every soul that refuses to bow to the ordinary. And maybe somewhere, he's still laughing, loud, wild, and free.